Greetings, fellow humans, and although I haven't been that active on BookTube lately, let's talk about books and a book I read. My TBR this year so far has been a bit on the slow side. Life happens, and I've been busy with a ton of things. But I did finish this pretty little thing. It's actually The Secret History of Twin Peaks, a novel, but it is like a dossier. And you can't see anything because the glare is intense. And I'm not gonna edit this out. That's how this channel rolls. Look at this. I'm gonna play like a violin. I think this is like Gemini. There you go. This is like Gemini, where you have news articles, you have reports, you have files, and you have pictures. So, should you buy this book? Okay. Or how much of it? That's not the right question. Should you buy this book? If you're asking that question, that means you're a fan of Twin Peaks. So, how much of a Twin Peaks fan do you have to be to buy this book? You should be a pretty avid fan. This is not for the casual fan or someone who saw it or someone who was... Well, you know, a lot of people were pretty upset with how the new season finished, but that's another thing. So, is this worth the bang for your buck? What will you get with this book? Does it have spoilers? Okay, if you're a fan of the series, this is not mandatory. This is a nice to have. This actually adds background stories to Twin Peaks in general. Talks about, it starts off really slow because it starts off with the roots in Robinson Crusoe? No, Lewis and Clark, Robinson Crusoe. Giving the roots of the story to Lewis and Clark and stuff like that, and it's kind of weird. I'm not gonna say it works or doesn't work. I'm gonna say it's weird. What I will say is that the original, the concept of Twin Peaks is the creation of Mark Frost and David Lynch. The show is David, and the book is Mark. So, if you watched the original series and loved it, then I'm still on the fence whether I recommend this or not. If you watched the original series and Fire Walk with Me, I'm still kind of in the fence on recommending this. If you watched the original series, Fire Walk with Me, and the new series, then that means you're hungry for more. So in that case, yeah, you should read this. It's hunky, it's detailed. Mark Frost does an exceptional job in writing in the voice of each of the characters that he writes. He explores the voices of a lot of people. My highlights are Deputy Hawk and Lawrence Jacoby. I think those are the two best voices. There are other stories that are really interesting, but the two best voices that I keep pronouncing voices really ecstatically are those. I can't say it's a fun book. I can say it offers some insight, but it's not mandatory. The show without the book exists. The book without the show doesn't exist, meaning that going into this without having watched anything would be very weird. You would be very disconnected, and you would probably be very disappointed. So I wouldn't recommend that. If you're a casual fan, not so much either. This is for someone who really loves the show and is jonesing to get as much information as possible. You will get some really interesting insights, especially to the stories of Big Ed, Hank Jennings, Norma, Deputy Hawk, the Log Lady. What they have to say about the Log Lady is really interesting. But again, this isn't mandatory literature. You know, just watching the series is enough, and you don't have to read this book to connect things and from the old series to the new series that aired last year on Showtime. But is it fun? It is. Is it worth the bang for your buck? It all depends on how much you're willing to forgive. I think the last season was an extremely rewarding experience. I'm still thinking about a couple of aspects. I was pissed off by a lot of them. I'm actually going to probably do a video about the 20 questions, or the first 20 questions that I can think of that were left over after the series ended. Because there's a lot of things left unsaid and left knots left untied. Um, Potentially plot holes, or potentially just wanting to screw with our minds, which David Lynch does oh so well. Uh, Something you have to take into consideration. David Lynch is more surrealistic, ethereal, fantasy-esque, dark fantasy. If you would, if you would allow me that description. Um, Dark surrealism is very much a Lynchian thing. Mark Frost is more on the lines of sci-fi, and not necessarily hard sci-fi, but more X-Files sci-fi, and with different elements tied in from either Native American mythology or just general American history. It's a weird book to read, but it was cool to read. But look at my reaction. I'm a really big fan of the show. Um, I love a damn good cup of coffee, but it's not a book that I would give to anyone unless they're a huge fan of the show. So those are my 2 cents on it. If you have any other specific questions, leave them down in the comments. If you've read it and want to discuss it, by all means, send me a message on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and I'd love to chat it up about this book if you have any specific questions. Because I always like to avoid spoilers, and this is a book very much designed to give more insights to what the world of Twin Peaks is like. So that means that every bit that you read is going to be a spoiler. And there are certain things that tie into the show. Obviously, they explain a bit of the murder of Laura Palmer, but that's actually an afterthought in this book in comparison to other stuff that they go really way in depth into. They even talk about Nixon. So, trust me, it's a good chunk of weird. It's a beautiful book. Here's the naked cover. Oh my god. So again, final verdict. If you're a fan of the show, this is going to be fun for you, or this should be fun. It's not even a guarantee. I gave it 3 stars, and I think you have to take off a star because of the prerequisites to enjoy it, and you can take off another star because it starts off slow as hell, and it only builds up once you get past like 80 pages. So there is that slump to take into consideration, and I don't think docking it a full star would be heresy. I think it's actually fair. And again, it's not something that I'm dying to read again. So 3 stars I think is a very fair rating. The craftsmanship of the book is phenomenal, though. I can attest to that. It's a beautiful book. The images and the printing quality and how everything is recreated is really, really, really lovely. So if you have Twin Peaks freak as a friend, not a bad gift. Anyways, I'll probably get to the last book that released after the series, and then I'll try to wrap up the questions that I have on the series and on the books and on the whole Twin Peaks mythology and stuff that I think would be cool to explore, just because why not? Anyways, till next time, peace, love, and Maki rolls.